I'm thinking what I might just do is get a magic eraser, clean up the front bezel, remove some of the yellowing, and maybe put it on a shelf until someday whenever or just try to diagnose it with my friend right now on Skype. Um, I'm not sure. Not looking too good.
Let's go back to 2014 for a few minutes. The world didn't know what a Touch Bar MacBook Pro was, for better or for worse. Windows XP was still supported, and not every tech headline required artificial intelligence to be in it somewhere. And I had just purchased a PowerComputing PowerCenter Pro 210 Mac clone from 1997, and I had never truly used a Mac before. Those of you who watched this on the day that it aired, it ended on the assumption that this machine was fully dead and not savable in the slightest. And it sat on my shelf for 11 years, through a move, through marriage, and it was even able to watch its friends in my collection come and go while it sat untouched. Until now. Several days ago, I took a look at the clone sitting lowly on top of the shelf of my collection and thought it would maybe be worth taking another look, after all these years. After all, I had acquired a bit more capability tinkering with older hardware, and as my old boss said, don't be afraid to try fixing it, especially if it's already broken. So I did just that. I took my clone down off the shelf, dusted it off, and plugged it in on my EcoFlow River 2 since I didn't want it chirping a breaker in my office just in case any of the 28-year-old components decided to leave the chat, which thankfully did not happen. However, nothing at all happened. Zero signs of life. The power supply seemed completely dead. So I took a look at the motherboard connector and noticed the pinout looked pretty much identical to a normal 20-pin ATX. So I dug a power supply out of storage, and while it didn't fit the machine at all, being a poorly constructed 850 watt Amazon special, it did do the trick. The machine would roar to life, bad fan bearings and all. However, time seemed to have done a number on this machine because now it didn't even give the tone that it was doing over a decade ago.
Uh-oh.
So I took a deeper dive into the machine and removed all the cards, the RAM modules, as well as the ROM and the cache modules. This allowed me to further inspect the contacts as well as get a better look at the motherboard, and nothing appears to have been causing any issues visibly, which led me to closer inspect the removable components, which also seemed to be okay to my eyes. I reinstalled the CPU card, which I actually later came to realize is an IBM PowerPC 740 accelerator card made by Newer Technology, and I went about reinstalling the RAM, ROM, and cache modules. While the machine still powered up, I got no bong, no life, nothing. That was day one of troubleshooting this thing, and after feeling like I had once again hit the same brick wall that I did when I first came across it, I did some deeper thinking. What could the machine run without? Could that aftermarket accelerator card be having some sort of an issue with the internal cache module? Could it be the Adaptec SCSI card? I didn't really know, but I was determined to finally find out. During all this, I noticed that I didn't even have a VGA monitor in the house anymore, which is shocking, I know. So, on my lunch break the next day, I went to the local thrift store, which is actually the same one that I got the clone at in the first place, and I went on a hunt for a small VGA monitor. Well, it wasn't exactly what I needed. It did fit the bill nicely, and for 14 bucks, you can't really complain. This is a 13-inch Craig TV, which has its own jokes with dank pods, but it has a nice assortment of ports and most notably VGA. I checked the capacitors on the board just to make sure there were no shorts, and after running it for just a little while, I noticed that the cache module was extremely hot. Almost too hot to even touch, so I quickly removed this and tested again, and to my utter amazement, I got a startup chime. While I still wasn't getting a image on the display, this was the closest I had been to a revival after all. So I tried to look up some documentation on the newer technology accelerator card that was in it, but I came back empty-handed, unfortunately. I went the safe route and set all four dip switches back to off and tested again, and this time I got the startup chime and picture. Alright, let's see what we got. We all know what it's gonna do, but let's see anyways. Holy sh! Oh, it. We've got a cursor? I had finally got the machine to show signs of life. It wasn't booting up off of the 6 gig Quantum Fireball SE SCSI drive, but it was able to boot up off of my floppy EMU. This told me that the PowerComputing branded DIMM was actually 64 megabytes, which is crazy. macOS 7.5.3 believed that this machine was a Power Macintosh 7200. Yeah, not quite. This is where my good friend Colin from DOSDude1 comes in. We had talked this over, and he got me to order a cheap PCI SATA card that had a controller that could be flashed to run on macOS. This would get me around having to use a blue SCSI or something of that nature. However, I was still determined to see if the original hard drive was truly dead, and if not, what the machine could have been used for back in the day. Colin was able to help me get a 7.5.3 image file created with a copy of SCSI Probe on it just to see if the drives were even getting recognized. This led to the rabbit hole of not seeing the hard drive, so we ultimately decided that the 28-year-old hard drive had simply had enough, as is becoming more and more common, unfortunately. However, we did notice something. The Adaptec SCSI card was not even showing up in SCSI Probe, which led us to believe that it may be the controller and not the drive. We double-checked that the correct drive in the SCSI chain was terminated and that the SCSI ID was correct on both devices in line, and after this I reseated the PCI SCSI card as well as the daughter card that it slots into. Let's just see if we get any different result. What the f***? Oh. Oh my. It's the SCSI card! This time, the unthinkable happened, and the machine finally booted, and also from its original install of macOS. I was finally able to see this machine sail its maiden voyage after years of thinking it was just a total loss. And it was so cool to see everything on the drive still intact, as if it were a time capsule of sort. After about half an hour of playing Data Archaeologist, which I won't go into on this video, I turned the machine off once more and put it back on the shelf while I wait for the SATA card to be delivered. I plan to make a complete image of the original drive to preserve it, and also create a separate partition to install the factory PowerComputing image. I am just so happy to finally say that the PowerComputing PowerCenter Pro 210 is alive and well, and I couldn't have done it without Colin's massive help. I appreciate everyone taking the time to watch this long-winded video, and even more so if you remember the original video I made on this. Stay tuned for future projects involving this machine and many others. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Take care, guys.